It's time for some low-hanging fruit. So today we're going to be reviewing PragerU's new video about transgender athletes or the end of women's sports. I've seen a clip or two on Twitter of this, so I kind of want to give my response to the video. I'm very confident, and in fact I'm sure, that there's going to be a lot of transphobia in here and misgendering and just basic ignorance about the science of transgender individuals. But let's hop in and take a look, see what they have to say.
I've been training to be a championship sprinter since I was 8 years old. With the help of my parents, my coaches, and my teammates, I did it. By sophomore year of high school, in 2018, I was one of the top 5 female high school sprinters in Connecticut. But then, one day, I wasn't. At the state championships that year, 2 people passed me, passed all of us girls, literally.
Is this going to be the transgender athletes that she's going to be complaining that she didn't train hard enough to be able to compete against? She's probably going to complain their extra testosterone because they're really men gave them an advantage or something like that, despite the fact that if they had access to hormone blockers or even hormone replacement therapy, which I consider in high school, I would say that a child would be old enough, or a minor would be old enough to determine whether or not they are transgender and begin the process of transitioning in high school. I would not be uncomfortable saying that. If they had access to hormone replacement therapy, they definitely wouldn't have that advantage anymore. Transgender women that are placed on estrogen or on testosterone blockers, or even on hormone blockers, they do not have the same advantages that cisgendered men would have athletically over a cisgendered woman. They just wouldn't. But she's probably going to complain about how they're biologically male and just whine about how she didn't train hard enough, but blame it on, the transgender people instead of her own failings.
They finished first and second in our races, dominating the field. Were they more motivated? Did they train harder?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Of course you don't think so, because you're butthurt that you lost, and you have to come up with an excuse as to why you weren't the best on the field. There must have been some other reason why they beat you, and it couldn't be because they trained harder, or they were more motivated than you, or they had better coaching. No, it couldn't be any of that. It had to be because they were transgender. It had to be that. It had to be that they were assigned male at birth, despite the fact that for them to be considered for women's sports, they would have to have begun the transition process already. No, it couldn't be that they trained harder or more motivated. Couldn't be that. They had to be cheating. Otherwise, you'd have to recognize your own failings.
But they did have an edge, a big one we couldn't match. They were biological boys who said they were transgender girls.
There it is. They were biological boys who said they were transgender girls. First of all, there's no such thing as a biological boy. Okay, boy is a gendered term. And gender, as we know, is a social construct. They may have been biologically male. They may have been assigned male at birth and born with male genitalia. But they're women. They're transgender women. They identify as women, and they've begun the transition process. Especially if they're in high school. In America, minors can gain access to puberty blockers once they start puberty, if they're transgender. So if they've begun their transition, they would not be on the same playing field as cisgender men hormonally. But yeah, I love that she has to find a reason why she lost, and it's because they're biological boys, even though that's not even an accurate term to use, who say they are transgender girls. Who say they are. I'm sorry, if you say you're transgender, if you identify as a gender other than the one that you were born with, you are transgender. If you identify as a woman, you're a woman. So I don't know the specifics, and I don't know these women personally, but I would venture to guess that they identify as women, therefore they're women.
Do you think that's fair? Males competing against females?
They're not.
Before you make up your mind, let me tell you a bit about what it took for me to become a top female sprinter. It meant training with my team every day after school for at least 2 hours, working to shave fractions of a second off of my time in the 100 and 200 meter dash.
That's what any elite athlete has to do. They have to train for long periods of time religiously every single day. You're just complaining about the regimen that you have to be on to be an elite athlete. They just trained harder than you. Being on hormone replacement therapy or on puberty blockers for transgender individuals, especially for trans women, destroys their body. It reduces their muscle density that cisgendered men have as an advantage over cisgendered women. It also lowers their bone density as well. The two things that would give them an athletic advantage, particularly the muscle density. So that being said, they didn't have any advantage over you. They just trained harder than you. Yeah, for any elite athlete, high school, college, or otherwise, you do have to train a lot. And I guarantee you, they trained harder than you did. You can't complain about somebody being better than you just because they beat you. That's not how sports works. If somebody is better than you, then they're better than you. Then you need to train harder instead of whining about how it's not fair.
It meant not hanging out after school or going out with friends on the weekends.
Just like
it meant getting up early every Saturday morning and competing all day at a meet.
Just like
it meant not indulging in any of the things that might cost me my dream.
Just like every high school and college athlete, or even professional athlete, every single athlete does those exact same things. Just like the girls that beat you did. Guarantee it. 100% guaranteed. If they were able to beat you, they did everything that you did better.
And here's the thing about the two biological males that...
See, she's going to keep hammering in on this. The two biological males. They may be biologically male, but they are transgender. And to compete in women's sports in high school, you have to begin your transition. You can't just say, I'm a girl, and compete in the women's league. There's a whole process involved in determining whether or not you can compete with women and whether or not you are actually a woman and are able to compete on the female team. It's not as simple as just saying you're a girl and then you get to go into the girls' locker room and you get to compete in women's sports in high school. That's not how it works. So they're at this point, they're not biologically male the same way a cisgendered man would be. You're just complaining because you lost.
That took the top 2 girls' medals in the state of Connecticut. Their times were not even good enough to qualify them to compete in the state championships on the boys' team.
Look at that. They were elite athletes that trained their hardest, and yet they were still outperformed by cisgendered men. Look at that.
Let me say that again in case you missed it. Their times were not good enough to qualify them for the boys' state championships. But
yes,
2 years...
Yes, they were outperformed by cisgender men. Yeah, go ahead and reiterate that. They were outperformed by cisgender men despite training as elite athletes the same way you did. It's almost as though transgender women don't perform to the same level as cisgendered men. Fancy that.
Years in a row, they won first and second place competing against the girls.
So they competed against other women and won first and second place. Good for them.
All in all, these two biological males won.
See, she's going to keep saying it. She's going to keep saying biological males, despite the fact that they're transgender women and are clearly outperformed, as she stated twice, by cisgender men.
On 15 women's state championship titles. Some in the media have accused me of being a sore loser.
Yes, that would be 100% accurate. You are a sore loser. Congratulations.
They tell me to run harder.
Yes, run
But the
harder.
biological changes that males go through during puberty are so significant, they gain an insurmountable advantage in strength and in speed.
So I'd like to point out a couple of things. First, being on hormone blockers or hormone replacement therapy basically nullifies any of those advantages. And I'll link the Ultimate Research document in the description below. So there's a few links in there about the science behind transgender medicine. But secondly, I'm not super in shape, but I'm not like a slob. I'm not completely out of shape. Like I can run, 2 miles without stopping, and I can, I don't work out all the time quite heavily, but I'm in decent shape. And I know women that can run circles around me. I know women that can outlift me because they work for it. They may have to work a little bit harder, sure, but it's not insurmountable. But even so, you stated in this video that their run times wouldn't qualify them compared to that of cisgendered men, despite training just as hard. Meaning that they don't have the same advantages over female athletes, cisgendered female athletes, that a cisgendered man would. Because they're in the process of transitioning, because hormone replacement therapy and hormone blockers nullify any advantages that a traditionally cisgendered man would have over a cisgendered woman. It's just science. Yeah, you're a sore loser. You're just whining. Run harder.
That's why boys always competed against boys and girls against girls.
And they still do.
US runner Allison Felix is an inspiration to me. She's the fastest female sprinter in the world.
Okay.
Her lifetime best for the 400 meters is 49.26 seconds. But based on 2018 data, nearly 300 high school boys in the US alone could beat that record.
Yes. Cisgendered boys who are not undergoing hormone replacement therapy or taking hormone blockers would be able to outperform a cisgendered woman. But you were competing against trans women, not cisgendered men. There's a difference there. You're just trying to use them being trans as an excuse for why you lost and trying to gain clout on the internet because you lost a scholarship potentially. You're just whining because they were better than you.
What we are talking about then is not just boys taking women's trophies.
They're not. Boys are not taking women's trophies. Transgender women are competing against cisgendered women on a level playing field.
Though they are. And we aren't talking about biological boys taking women's athletic scholarships.
They're not. Again, there's no such thing as a biological boy. They were trans women in the process of transitioning, meaning that any hormonal advantages they would have been nullified by the medications they took. They were just better than you and took your scholarship. I'm sorry, maybe run harder.
Though they'll do that too.
No, they won't.
When biological boys are allowed to
God.
compete against girls in sports like track, where the differences in performance are so great, we are talking about girls getting shut out, never getting the chance to win or even compete at all.
But girls did beat you. Those 2 women beat you. You weren't running against men. You were running against 2 women. They were trans women, but they were women nonetheless. They were just better than you. Women aren't getting shut out of sports. No biological boys are competing against girls in these sort of events where scholarships would be on the line. I'm sure there's co-ed leagues for children, just like a co-ed soccer league or something like that for very small children, because it doesn't matter. But for things like this, they are still separated by gender. You just got beat by 2 women. They happen to be trans women, but we've already gone over the science behind that, and I'll link it down below. You got beat. They were better than you. And you made a 5-minute video on Prager complaining about it so that they can use your experience to prop up their bigotry and their transphobia for all of their viewers. They're using you as a puppet to push their bigoted views, and you're playing right into it, and I guarantee you agree with them because you're a sore loser. If you didn't lose against them, if you beat them, had you trained harder than them, you wouldn't be crying about this. You wouldn't be whining about this, and you probably wouldn't feel the way you do about the transgender community. But you've been fed misinformation and are a sore loser and are using that misinformation to make yourself feel better because you didn't train hard enough.
When 2 biological boys took the 1st and 2nd place spots against me in the 2019 Indoor State Championship, I lost the opportunity to participate at the New England Championships.
That sucks.
I lost the chance to be scouted by top coaches, possibly even to win scholarships.
Wait, so So earlier in the video, just like 30 seconds ago, you said that they took your scholarship, and now you're saying you possibly lost scholarships? Sure, it's likely because you got beat, meaning you weren't the best runner on the field and didn't qualify. But you're admitting right now that they didn't for sure take your scholarship, meaning you still have a shot at it. And if they came in first and second, who came in third? Because it's not only first and second in any competition that I've ever been a part of or watched. I used to play sports back in middle school and high school. It was first, second, and third that went on to compete in the regional championships or whatever. Or in some cases, like baseball, it was only first place. So why did both of them go? Why did first and second place go? If they would have either sent first place or first, second, and third to compete. So who came in third? Was there another person who was better than you? Why aren't you whining about them? But yeah, can you try and keep your story straight? Either they took your scholarship or they didn't.
Right now, biological boys are being allowed to set records on the girls' team.
No, they're not. Transgender women are being allowed rightfully to compete against cisgendered women. And they should be. There's no such thing as a biological boy, and cisgendered men are not competing against you. You just lost.
Deleting girls' records, erasing the achievements of actual girls, and
actual girls. There's the bigotry again. You're so salty that you lost that you have to demonize an entire marginalized group of people in our society to make yourself feel better. You got beat by trans women, but they're still women. Train harder. Train as hard as they do.
setting a standard probably no girl can meet, no matter how much she trains or how hard she tries.
Try harder.
The reason that we have girls' sports in the first place is to give female athletes with talent, hard work, and dedication an equal opportunity to shine and be recognized.
And they still have that.
But girls will never have that opportunity if they are forced to compete with biological boys.
That's why they aren't. They're competing. I'm repeating myself. They're repeating against trans women in the transition process. Anytime she keeps saying girls training against or competing against biological boys, I've already made the argument multiple times. I'm not going to keep repeating myself. I'm just going to slide over it because she's made this argument like 4 or 5 different times in 3 minutes of a video. So we're going to just let the video finish. If she comes up with new arguments, then I'll talk about those.
In sports like track and field, softball, volleyball, or basketball, women fought too hard for too long so girls like me can have the opportunity to compete on a level playing field.
And they are.
Maybe worst of all, when girls try to object, when we point out the truth, that biological differences in strength and speed between boys and girls are massive and real.
You see, there is a difference between the potential muscle growth for a given amount of exercise between cisgendered men and cisgendered women. This isn't inaccurate, what she's saying right here, but what she's alluding to, and I'm sure what she's going to get to in just a second, is not what's happening. I'm going over the same point again, but yes, there are differences in muscle growth for a given amount of exercise between cis men and cis women. But trans women, women on hormone blockers, or even on hormone replacement therapy, do not have the same advantage as cis men do for that given exercise. They just don't. And because she's competing against trans women, it still is a level playing field. Especially in high school sports. If we're talking like late adult sports, like the trans woman power lifter that Blair White made a video about and just blatantly lied about several things about that woman in her video, then maybe I could see a point there because she had gotten her gains while still identifying as a man and had not began her transition yet. So by the time she transitioned, she already had all of those physical advantages. But that woman doesn't compete against cis women for that reason. But we're talking about high school sports. No high schooler is at their peak physical ability. I certainly wasn't, and I was pretty athletic in high school. But no high schooler has reached peak athletic ability or peak muscle growth, or even finished puberty. So what she's complaining about isn't even valid, especially if the transgender individuals are already in the process of transitioning.
We're called bigots.
You
Administrators, teachers, coaches, and other students tell us to just keep quiet and take it.
No, we tell you to train harder because you're a bigot. Yeah, keep quiet because you're a bigot, but train harder if you want to win.
We are told a girl's place is to be seen and not heard.
No, that is not what's happening. Fuck you. Holy shit, that is not what's happening. You're whining because you got beat and can't accept it. This is not about silencing women. This is about shutting down bigotry. There's nothing wrong with shutting down bigotry. There's nothing wrong with being intolerant to intolerance.
Well, we won't be silenced. We are fighting
Bigots
back.
will.
With 2 other top female runners in Connecticut, I have filed a federal lawsuit under Title IX to protect the rights of women and girls to a fair competition on a level playing field.
I guarantee you that's not going to go anywhere.
Please
Connecticut is a very progressive state.
don't turn your backs on us, America.
We're not.
This isn't about gender identity.
Yes, it is.
It's about fair play. I'm
No,
Selena
it's not.
Soul for Prager University.
All right, so that was 4 minutes and 44 seconds of whining about how she didn't train hard enough to compete on a level playing field against other women, trans or otherwise. But yeah, we went over how trans women are on a level playing field with cis women as long as they have begun their transition and are either on hormone blockers or hormone replacement therapy, both of which should be available and in many places are available to women of high school age. This is not the same as the debate about whether or not a 7-year-old should have access to those therapies, though I personally believe they should. But these are adult or nearly adult women that we're talking about here, so they definitely should, and in many cases do, have access to hormone replacement therapy or even hormone blockers at the very least, leveling that playing field. She just spent 5 minutes whining on a massive platform about how she wasn't good enough and making excuses as to why she lost in a fair competition. But bigots like to point to these kinds of events to try to invalidate the idea of transgender individuals being accepted into society, saying that, oh, these trans women, they're really men competing against women and getting rid of and taking away their scholarships is just not fair, and transgender people shouldn't be allowed. Fuck you. They are trans women. Trans women are women. Trans people are valid, and they should not be kept out of sports or any other social activity because they are trans. Especially in situations like these with young adults that would have access to medical therapies that would level any playing field between cis women and cis men being a transgender individual. You're just whining. You're just sad. You're in your fifis because you lost. Get over it. Get off PragerU. You're being used as a puppet to spread bigotry. But anyway, that's going to be it for me today. Thanks for tuning in. Feel free to hit the subscribe button, drop a like on the video. You can follow me at my socials here. You can follow me on Twitter. You can join the Discord, join the conversation if you want. I stream on Twitch Saturday nights and Sunday nights, starting at around 8 to 9 p.m. It kind of changes. I have a kid, so it depends on how bedtime goes. Yeah, if you want to come and hang out there, that'd be awesome. We can chat. If you have any questions, you feel free to hit me up. But until the next one, I will see you later. Peace.